Careful what you say or you'll get together.
Welcome to our show of extreme torture tonight in particular. Oh, man. So I have learned a lot on tonight's journey, which I will share.
You have.
I have learned a lot. I need to probably pull back on grabbing so many topics so fast because one of them eventually bit me in the ass with this one. But nonetheless, it had its time. It had its day in the sun, I guess, for lack of a better word. It's notoriety. Seems like I remember listening to it a lot in the 80s and 90s, probably 70s as a kid. And it's Ley Lines. And so I thought we would start the show just kind of starting out with me apologizing for what we're getting ready to put you guys through because you're going to get some of the torture that we went through with this one. But let me do a shout out to the people that are already here. Tiffany, John, it's good to see you, John, Melissa, Robert, Diane, and Donna. I heard Donna was at a concert. That's really good.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Donna. Hope the concert's good.
Mm-hmm.
It gets too bad. We'll just go to Donna as the reporter in the field at the concert.
Yeah.
Just live stream the concert.
So I guess I saw this topic just kind of perusing paranormal issues and looking at different sites. And this one kind of came up and I just remembered it as a kid. And I thought, this is great. I messaged Dave and Kenny there. And I was like, this is what we're going to do. This is going to be so much fun. And so I started getting into the topic and quickly realized that it was probably less credible than an orb. As it stood.
Ooh.
Damn.
Yeah.
He said
a low ass bar you're setting there.
It
Damn.
is.
Word.
It took all about 10 minutes to start messaging going, hey guys, I fucked up with this one. So one of the things I definitely learned before this show is I'm going to start from this day on doing some more research, or actually doing research when snagging a topic. So let me just kind of give a brief explanation. And there is, I think we kind of agreed, at least in part, that there is a distinction of the idea of ley lines when it first came around to when it kind of went really sideways. And that was in the 60s, probably, when everything went sideways for a lot of fun. So basically what ley lines are, just a quick sum up. At first, it was just this idea of straight lines connecting very prominent places in different areas of the world and the country, I should say, more so. And the wonder was why? Why does it seem that there are these straight lines connecting very important and prominent places? Began looking at, is it just easier to travel in that destination? Or did people migrate from one, go to another destination and build their own town, build their own city? And it just looked like that, migrating or moving along the countryside where it's easiest to follow. Later on, it began to take a kind of a form that it was an idea that people had followed these lines because it was an area of high energy.
Wink.
There we go.
We're going to be so fucked up.
Yeah. So it was the idea that there was this energy field and energy lines that the people would follow and did not know that they were following, even to the point where there was at least some, not necessarily too scientific studies that looked at animals that followed the same path and wondered if animals were following paths due to magnetic fields or energy sources from the Earth. So I'm not going to knock the beginning of it. I had it as early as 1846 by Edward Duke that kind of began noticing prehistoric monuments kind of lined up when you lined them up. I think it's a fair question, at least during that time, as to why, what was going on. Is there something there that wasn't so bad? I don't think. I don't think that at the time that person was thinking that there was energy lines or magnetic fields that was drawing people somehow in this paranormal mystic way. But when we get to the 60s, we'll talk about the 60s and what happened with the mysticism when it took over, which includes my favorite, which was UFO refueling stations. So I'll hand off the next segment to I'll go with Dave. What do you think?
Well, you got further than I did. There's really two ways, as you said, to understand ley lines. The one was the evidence-based application, really trying to understand alignments through mapping and walking and maybe paths that people use to guide them to certain locations. And then it transitioned more into the mysticism part. And then I did find one paper that was kind of interesting, talking about how, the author himself went and did walk the ley lines. And it was almost like an enchantment idea, where these sacred, religious, or these other sites that you kind of become absorbed into it, and you feel this greatness and something outside or well beyond yourself. So that was kind of interesting. But you can get that when you just walk around in a really beautiful place in nature, or other locations. So yeah, it's just the evidence-based one where they try to do something with mapping that was started out serious, and then it turned into this mystical thing, and talked a little bit about the golden age of human existence and all these energies and all that. And then I kind of cut it off there. I'm like, Tim's messaging, and then I'm looking at UFO refueling stations. I'm like, what the fuck? Is it right next to the electric car spot at the Jewel or Osco by us? I mean, what are you talking about? So it got way out of hand. So I think it's something that started out at least reasonable and seemed like they were trying to understand and apply some type of cartography to it. And then it just went way, way out there, and it was hijacked because there was kind of this ambiguous feeling of what it was. It wasn't well defined. And then the New Agers took over. And as you said, Tim, in the 60s, and then moving on, it got way out of control. Everything got out of control. And they talk about earth energies and magnetic fields, and you should be able to pick these up with dowsing rods. And it's like, oh my God.
Oh yeah.
Kenny's going to go find some ley lines for us. So yeah, it was, I don't know. It was a painful week. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was. I feel your pain, because this is one of the few topics where I began to read it, and I kept finding myself like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna play Lego Star Wars, or I'm gonna watch this instead, or I'm gonna go clean the bathroom, because that's more fun than reading about this. But I still wanted to get through it a little bit, because I am asked about it quite often, more often than I would like, especially after actually digging into it. It's one of them things where, if somebody, whoever's asking about them, if they only did 2 minutes of research, Google it, 2 minutes later, you should know what you're dealing with. It's really that simple. But it seems like there was an evolution, and it started out as something not paranormal whatsoever. It was an observation, and an observation, pretty much a historical observation, going from history, like really, really old history, to modern times. But you're talking about when it started in Europe, not necessarily here in America, but it started in Europe, where you have much older civilizations, or modern civilizations. So you have a lot more structures, or quote unquote permanent structures, where you're going to have ruins, and there's going to be like little markings of like, hey, this is the road, you know, go this way. You don't have the grid of cities that you do now, where you had open fields, and when you wanted to go somewhere, you walked, you walked that way, and that's where you got it. And that's how these paths developed over time. They were worn paths because that's the way people would travel, and with their carts. And that's one thing that stood out to me that I didn't get to write down: the size of some of these paths. They're not really big. They're not really big at all. Some I think were only like 3 feet wide, or so, and I think it matched the wheels of a cart, as they're going down the paths. You know, taking their whatever their goods to trade or whatever they have. So I don't see anything mystical about it. But as you mentioned, and we'll probably get into it a little bit, in the 60s, between like 40s and 60s, 1940s and 60s, things began to change. New Agers came on, and they started taking a new, they started repurposing it. And once you get this idea, like, oh, they're straight lines. And I think this is a good, the more I talk about it, the more things pop up. Like, the more I think about it, this is your modern, this is what we're used to seeing with modern ghost hunters or paranormal enthusiasts or paranormalists. Still a stupid word. Where it's like they take a part of an idea. They don't read the whole thing. They read the fucking headline, and they're like, oh, that's a cool idea. And they take it and they use it. They adopt it. They appropriate it for their own purposes. And you get ley lines, which are just straight lines between certain places, which would have been something, because again, you didn't have all these big cities. You just had a lot of open land. But now it's transformed into something magical, or as Dave said, enchanted. Let's go enchanted. And that develops over time. People start putting more metaphysical meanings to it. And now you have the Elon Musk of space travel recharging stations for UFOs and shit like that, where it's like these imaginary lines that crisscross, and there's the metaphysical energy that can power certain things, and certain people can read them, and all kinds of shit. And Dave, you actually gave me an idea, because you had mentioned during our talks about you were trying to find one that was close to you that you could actually go. I did the same thing, but the maps were all different. I couldn't find any that agreed on where these lines were. And I'm like, what the hell? That
sounds like a Scooby clue.
So, I mean, as for opening comments, like this, there's a lot of bullshit here, you know, a lot. And seriously, 2 minutes of simple, like 3rd grade research would answer the question of, are these things real?
Yeah, so I can certainly agree. Like, I can certainly see the way that this happened now that you put it in that perspective. I can certainly see, I don't know the book. Let me see if I can find in my notes. In the 60s, it came out. The view over Atlantis.
Yeah,
where I think some of the ley lines. So, but there's a marriage there,
right?
Yeah, and so when you have that, when you drop the word Atlantis, and then already some of the ley lines were considered ancient, mystical power lines and energy lines, then I can see where it begins to meld and it takes just a whole life force of its own,
right?
And that's a really good. I think that's a really good analogy.
And we see that with a lot of things that we talk about. Mm-hmm. You know, the equipment that ghost hunters now use. And then just stories, some of the stories that we've gone over, they evolve over time. And this is what I would call old school viral. You know, it's not something that's internet based where within minutes the entire planet knows about it. This is old school, where it's word of mouth, it's books from the 1960s that go out, and it's on those new age shelves, you know, which I browse all the time because I like that kind of shit. But
right.
I mean, it's out there, and these kind of authors that write like the Atlantis book. These are the ones that get the fluff pieces around Halloween and stuff from the newspapers because they're like, oh, new book and it's about this. Let's get into that. And it gets in print and it gets out there and it becomes part of the pop culture. And now we hear bits and pieces because, like, again, I didn't know much about these until we started researching for this show. I heard it through different like TV shows that dealt with this topic.
Same.
I've heard it from other paranormal people. And, you know, it just comes up and it's like, oh, ley lines. I don't know. I think I've done like a quick search. Yeah, ley line. Yeah, no. Just no, it's not anything.
You make a good point. I mean, even the books in the 1920s and the handbook, that guidebook that basically told you by Watkins, that told people, amateurs, he made it to where the layperson could go out and conduct their own ley line hunting by themselves. So it's almost like the modern day TV shows or the internet. Okay, I heard about ghost hunting, but here's a guidebook, here's a couple steps, here's some cheap equipment. You can go out and do this yourself. So it had a real appeal to people. But even back in the 20s, and then it started to transition late 20s and then on to the 40s and through the 60s. But there was people that were out actually doing almost what you might consider citizen science back in that day. Okay, here's the general guidelines. Here's how you do it. Go out and do it. And it had appeal to people. But, you know, when you start introducing the mysticism and the dowsing rods, then to me, it became a lot like what we see today with modern technology and TV and computers. It was almost like a whole early, they weren't looking for ghosts, but a whole early movement of people who could be amateurs and not really know anything about it and go out and feel like they're contributing to science and doing something worthwhile.
Right. I went back and I read through the chapter in Watkins' book, his 1922 book, and it's free on Google.
Yep.
You can read the whole book.
You did more than I did. I didn't think about going back and looking for the book.
Yeah, that's the first thing. I saw that. I was like, well, he's a even though there's like two people ahead of him. Because Tim, you mentioned 1846, the Reverend Edward Duke, and then in 1909 I have Wilhelm. I'm not even going to try that.
Do it, Wilhelm Teudt. Yeah.
Had these ideas, but they were furthered by Alfred Watkins. I think he really popularized it with this book. So that's the first thing. I was like, let me see if that's available, you know, because I like getting those old books because they're really, really cool just to have. I mean, I collect. This is one. I'm going to show it off. Has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But this is the Brown Lady of Raymond Hall. One of the photographers is named Indre Shira, but it's a code name. That's actually his wife, and his wife wrote this book, and I was able to get it. But anyway, sorry, off topic. I was just excited that I got it. But I got this. I went and got this, and it's free on Google Scholar. So all you have to do is put the title in, and it'll come up, and it says free. So I read through it, and the chapter is called "The Ley," which is funny. It sounds like a porn. But you read through it, and it's all about tracking more ancient roadways and historic markers and cities and buildings, specific buildings and stuff that are either in ruins or have been there for hundreds of years, because that's how old the country is. And the land, these parts of the lands weren't developed. So you still have these remnants, and he was following them. And at one point, and this was actually really cool. It says, let's see, there were cleverly planned high-level mountain tracks, which, although on an average sighting line, could not keep straight, being on the side of a mountain, but took a serpentine course in around like different places around the headlands and stuff, but viewed edgewise, they were a straight line. So, I mean, that's a big deal to me, a big distinction, because he's telling you it's not straight if you look from here to there, but if you look sideways at it, the road is straight, or if it's going down an incline or a uphill.
I am completely with you. So the whole time I was doing this, I wondered what their definition of straight was. I gave up before I started digging that deep. What is straight? What is like? Do they allow variants to go around a lake? Like, would that be considered? Well, we're going to give that a pass because obviously it would have gone straight, but we're going to let it go around the path. And elevation. Do they consider elevation being straight as well? But I didn't get into it, so it's really cool that you saw that, because that was a question that I had, was what was their definition of straight and how did they make allowances for
there's more that I didn't read. I mean, it goes into mounds and hills. It's got some pictures in it. I mean, earth
they spell out kind of a 4-step process. I think it was about 4 steps. You ID sighting points, which would be archaeological significance, that connect in a linear formation. Then you have mark points, which would be like mounds, moats, stones, castles, other beacons that you might think are important. Then you find further evidence of a ley line in these confirmation points. So as you're looking at the ley line, you might see a church, you might see a cross, you might see, a single tree. I'm like, really? A single tree? How many fucking single trees are there out there? But okay. I mean, there could be crossroads and ponds. You mentioned ponds, but if the ponds were in the line, and then the way, at least I understand, Watkins instructed it on the work instructions. I think that's the chapter Kenny might be talking about, called work instructions, or there's one, the Ley Line, or no, the Ley Hunter's Manual in 1927, the chapter work instructions, and they say it has to be greater than or equal to 4 objects in a straight line. And again, what's a straight line and how far? Because as you know, with the curvature of the earth,
right?
How straight of a line is that? Are you, depending on the distance, are you taking account of the curvature of the earth, or is your straight line? Now you're looking at the sky going, okay, I'm trying to see if there's anything significant floating out there.
I thought that too, because some of the maps that came up, like you see them, the lines go like that, like a wave.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at it going, oh, they're accounting for the globe.
So they do account for the curvature,
they're accounting for that, because
I thought people that are out hunting don't know that, and they don't do that. You're just looking like line of sight straight down.
I saw where archaeologists and statisticians got together and just they demonstrated that if you do enough lines in many places, you're going to end up with 4 or more.
And for if you really want to read about that, this is a fascinating paper.
Survey of Statistical Theory of Shape. Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Basically, they say, you can draw all these different lines, start with triangles, draw the lines, put them on a sphere, and eventually pretty much everything ends up in a straight line. That was the takeaway from there, using some very advanced mathematics. But they show that, you're going to find straight lines. I mean, in the Midwest and in Wisconsin, they have Indian mounds. And I took a quick look at a map of Indian mounds, and I could very easily line up 4 of them in a straight line. No problem.
Right.
But then it depends on which 4 you pick. Then you could pick another 4. It could go this way. It could go that way. It was all over the place. So, you can draw a straight line with a couple points. And does it mean anything? I don't know. I mean, if you're back in the old days and you don't have GPS and roads wandering through the countryside, what obviously is the shortest distance to the next point? A straight line. So you're going to have markers most likely, and you're going to look for those and navigate with those markers.
Yeah.
So it's not really that far out there, the original concept at all.
Yeah. I mean, you look at modern day cities and towns. I mean, you look at Philly, just look at a map of Philly. It's a grid for the most part. You do have some roads that go in like a serpentine throughout the city and crisscross, but for the most part, it's all grids. So I bet I could line up more than 4 pizza shops.
Cemeteries.
Pizza. I mean, we have pizza shops everywhere. Mm-hmm. So I could draw I could drop a ruler on a freaking map of Philly, and I bet at random I'd have 5, 6, 10 pizza shops in that line of ruler.
And actually, there was one thing I read and I didn't print it out, and it was something where they proved their point of you can put anything in a couple points in a straight line. They mapped the ley lines of the old Woolworth stores. It's like, oh, look, they're on a ley line. It's a fucking department store. What do you come on?
Yeah. And I mean, according to the one map that I found, there's a line that goes between Philadelphia and Allentown. So I've crossed it probably hundreds of times easily. But the weird thing is, like, there's specific like towns or cities that make up certain points where they draw the lines, but then there's other points where the line just stops or goes somewhere else, and there's no specific like marker. It's just, oh, we're gonna end it here, and then I look at a different map, and none of these lines are present. It's basically, I think it's really, a lot of this is subjective too, because when we get into the more metaphysical thing about, you know, like sacred sites, you know, who sacred to who? It really depends on who considers it sacred. Because a lot of, I mean, and I hate to pick on them, and I hope I'm not, but you get the burial mounds, you know, they're sacred to Native Americans, but like not to most white people. You know, they're not sacred. They're hills. People go to tour, you know, they tour and they're like, oh, look, a hill, but they're not considered really sacred. They're considered more tourist attractions to people that aren't following it. And again, I hope that's not disrespectful, but
I think I understood what you mean.
There's a subjective definition of what could be sacred to you versus other people. I think that's what you're saying, which, hey, wherever the local bar is, that might be sacred to some of us.
Right. You know, like if you have a favorite place that you go to, that you've been going to for years, you know, a favorite restaurant, a favorite bar, you know, where you had your first date with your wife or husband or partner or whatever, you know, that's sacred to you. That's something special to you, but not necessarily to millions of other people. And so I think a lot of these maps they're drawn up, especially I think modern times, because it has more of a metaphysical, it's completely metaphysical now. It's not anything, because I mean, Ley, where is it? I found it. Ley,
it translates on the, go ahead. Sorry.
It's all right. It's just, oh crap. I had it. Definition.
It had something to do with most of the original work that Watkins did in, what was it, Hertfordshire, that a lot of the places he found on the lines ended or had Ley in the name originally. So
the meaning of Ley, Ley, is grassland / pasture. That's what it means. So yeah, these ley lines are lines that go across pastures. I mean, that's your original meaning. So now we talk about modern times, and it's all metaphysical. It's power lines, you know, not electrical power, but earth power, and just energy to fuel stuff. And if you build a site on there, then it's got more power, and you're more in tune with psychic shit or something like that. I don't know, but I totally forgot where I was going. I was going such a tangent. I forgot where I was going with this.
You're going too fast. You ran away from your brain. I'll drop talking about.
It happens.
So I'll drop this line, speaking about how you can make analogies. Even back here, you know, it doesn't really give the exact decade, but they're talking about ley lines already been taken up by the counterculture, which we're talking about the 60s. And there's an archaeologist, Matthew Johnson. That's where he saw, or notates at least, that ley lines were attributed with significant sacred significance or how's that mystical power is getting good. It's starting to hit. But listen to this. So they noted that ley lines came to be conceived in this era, in the 60s, and a quote is, lines of power, the paths of some form of spiritual force or energy accessible to our ancient ancestors, but now lost to narrow-minded 20th century scientific thought. How's that? Where have we heard that lines of bullshit before? Even in the 60s, they were talking about stupid scientists have to come along and test shit. I like the idea. It gives me the idea of that quote. That's a wonderful theory you have there. I'd be ashamed if someone tested it.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree with JD's comment. Like, and unfortunately, the word metaphysical has gone.
Yes.
It has, again, that's also evolved, or it's been not evolved necessarily, but been appropriated by a community. They've taken it and they've redefined it themselves, and unfortunately, that's leaked into the pop culture. And I mean, I'm guilty of, obviously, because I've just used it in that context. But yeah, I get it. It's not. It shouldn't be used that way, but unfortunately, it is. So yeah, it's bastardized. That's right, Diddy.
So here's a question from JD. What is the relation of ley lines to vortexes? I did not see any. My knee-jerk reaction is both don't exist. Other than that, I don't know relation.
I think it wasn't it where the ley lines potentially cross, or a bunch of them cross? There might the New Agers said there's vortices there.
Isn't that like the crossroads where you summon a demon?
Ooh.
Well, I think it's either
these.
lines of bullshit or piles of bullshit. The vortices are piles of bullshit. Those are the lines.
Oh my gosh!
I like that.
Remember that.
There's 3 axes that you can follow in a straight line.
Bullshit.
Up and down is one. Are you writing down a T-shirt?
I'm writing down what he said because that's awesome.
I think that was a New Age thing where you have they talk about where they have cross points or maybe extremely sacred sites that fall on the ley line, and that you might find energy vortices there.
That's good. I didn't run across that.
I'm gonna have to go get more beer. I'm pounding through these with all this energy talk.
I am too. I've already started slurring.
We should do a commercial because we're halfway through, or like our break, and then you guys can fill up. I can fill up too because I'm
earliest break ever, but we can do it.
Hold on, let me get this for Tiffany because this question won't be too long. What does the bottom of Kenny's shirt say?
There you go.
I do like it. Good pull.
Because if I offended you, that's your fault. No. All right. So,
I kind of have the sneaking suspicion that both of y'all are feeling that I am pretty intoxicated or well on my way and just want me to screw up a break. So you can have another one. Do you want to do it? Do you want to?
Here you go. Wait. I looked it up, and this is a sacredmysticaljourneys.com. Crossroads are particularly notable as supernatural areas and are said to be cross points between energy fields and in the Earth's grid system, or intersecting ley lines. Where ley lines supposedly crossed, a strong power spot was created. These nodes could produce an energy vortex. Vortexes are energy fields where electromagnetic energy rising from the Earth is said to be portals for celestial and terrestrial spirits. There you go. You're welcome.
AKA demons. So I can learn to play guitar. That'd be good. Here's one from Jim. Dr. Jim, it's good to see. The definition Tim read, are you guys just looking at contemporary reports of ley lines, not the 1,000 plus or minus stories?
Why are reports in quotes?
I don't know. Probably just what is emphasizing reports.
But usually when people put words in quotes, it's because they don't really believe it's reports. Like they're not being genuine with that word. For me, I'm going by what I found from, there's very little academic stuff that I found, but I went to a primary source. One of the primary sources was the book written by Watkins. Watkins? Yeah. So that's where I went, where it was really first, the word ley really first appeared with ley lines. Mm-hmm. So that's where I went. And then I went from there, just building across. We can go, there's thousands years ago. Yeah. So
I did run across something. I think I understand what he's asking for, that there are at least some type of relations of something being recognized as energy lines or something like that. But I did find one of the archaeologists, I'm looking for it, that they have no record in any archaeological site or finding that there is any reference to ley lines or energy vortexes or reports that
Right.
there are something along the line that is mystical. And I'm sorry, my notes, I do for such a topic, I still ended up with 2 pages of notes, and I highlight what I think I'm going to end up talking about, and I can't find this one.
Yeah, prior to these examples, like I didn't delve too much into the 1846 example, which is the first example that I saw cited. But prior to that, I don't see any mention of this at all. So I couldn't find anything. All I found was more the I don't want to use metaphysical now. Paranormal, new age sites that are promoting. And this is like I believe this is actually like a fallacy, a logical fallacy, the ancient or ancient times fallacy. I got to look up the exact name, but it's giving this idea or impression that an idea or concept is from ancient times, from like thousands of years ago, when it wasn't, because this is a fairly modern concept. And everything that we found, everything that I found, and what you guys seem to have found points to a modern concept and not something that's ancient. But by all means, I mean, if you have something that contradicts that, we're happy to look at it.
Yeah, I found it's a small note, but I found it. It's a consensus of archaeologists note there's no evidence that ley lines were recognized phenomenon among ancient European societies. That attempts to draw them typically rely on linking together structures that were built in different historical periods. So I think maybe someone noticed it, just like this other person did, that there's a line between these two different historical places, but there's nothing that they came across in writing or literature or any other thing that says that there is a mystical reason.
No, that might be going back, and it wasn't really recognized late 1800s into the 20s by Watkins, but I think people think through the New Age thought process that maybe like back in the days when Stonehenge was built and then the pyramids, that they were using, the speculation was by the New Agers that they were using these ley lines or these energy lines to position where they put things. But that really wasn't talked about. At least I didn't come across anything where they're like, okay, there's, ancient hieroglyphs of ley lines and showing where things are located. I didn't see anything like that.
Yeah, I did run across, I think there was something astrological, which I can certainly understand. Obviously, I mean, I think that's probably a science, if not a skill, that is really overlooked and not, I think, appropriately attributed to many cultures from a long time ago that they developed and had a really good grasp on. I can fully understand that. I'm not sure about energy lines on the earth, though. Nice shirt.
There you go.
So dare we? Here you go. I'm not even going to attempt this, but you can speculate. Do you find out what happens if you get laid at a ley line?
It's a double laid, so it cancels itself out.
Called a threesome, John.
Wow. All right. Points to Dave. Oh shit. I really just don't see anything with this. I mean, I do hear about it a lot, and I have been told several times when I go to like conferences and meet, especially with people that claim to be psychic or mediums, mostly psychic, that if you're in a place that's built over or near a ley line, then your abilities are heightened or your senses are heightened. And it's cracked me up, because it's like, all right. And honestly, most of the time I hear Dave's voice in my head. Oh, how do you measure that? How do you measure that?
Yeah, if there's something fucking there, you can measure it. At this point, You could
Yeah.
take literally based on what they're saying, and if it has anything to do with magnetic fields, whatever earth energies, radiation, whatever you're looking at, there's a sensor to measure that, and it's going to be sensitive enough to measure that. So, I'm surprised somebody hasn't run around, at least on trying to find a ley line map that a couple of them that overlap and people agree on a couple spots, and actually went out and did the measurements. And if it's something people are picking up on, I mean, there's one recent study that shows that the human brain does pick up and respond to very subtle changes in the Earth's magnetic field. But there's equipment there. Your damn cell phone these days can pick up those small changes. So yeah, find the ley lines, find the vortices, find the overlaying, the overlapping points, and measure that, and then go outside of that and measure it and see if there's any differences. It's got to be measurable if there's really something there. But I think what you're going to find is a whole lot of noise, because there's stuff everywhere. There's magnetic fields. The Earth's magnetic field, if you look at any Earth magnetic field maps, they vary from location to location. The intensity and the strength is not the same in every spot. And then you have all the man-made stuff fucking with the equipment now too. So, maybe even if it was there, I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure if you'd be able to see too much of a difference, actually, the more I think through that. So I don't know, but if it's there, somebody should be able to find it and measure it. And I don't even think anybody is taking this serious enough to go out and try to do that, to tell you the truth.
No, because that would, I think my prediction would be they would find nothing, and you don't want to prove your own belief false. I mean, I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to take part in that. I mean, that'd be a fun little adventure, I think, to go check it out. But again, it comes back to the problem I mentioned in the beginning. None of these fucking maps agree. So, and what's the margin of error? If you're drawing a line between 2 points, exactly, I mean, you need to be pinpoint on that. Or is it 10 feet wide, 20 feet wide? Like,
easy to do with the GPS on your phone. Piece of cake.
Right.
Exact point down to a couple feet at the most.
Which I'm sure they had in ancient times to make sure that these lines or these structures were built on these lines. Yeah. I mean, do you see where I'm going here?
Yep.
So yeah, that's another like nail in the coffin there.
And I'm not saying things don't line up on lines. They do. They absolutely do. Right. And I think the original concept was an interesting concept, and it probably wasn't a bad idea. Yes. But it's been so distorted and fucked up since then that nobody, at least in the scientific community, takes it seriously.
And I see Dr. Jim's statement there, and I get it. I get it. And that's your evolution of architecture. I mean, that's really, or building, because we still see that today. Older houses are knocked down, new houses are built up. Older warehouses and buildings are knocked down or renovated, and you have what's old is new again. So I get the idea that, yeah, you can have these markers that people built up, maybe more ancient or older civilizations or older belief systems would have one monument, and then when that belief system either died out, I don't know if that's the right word, died out, or was absorbed and or again appropriated by another religion or another belief system, they took over that sacred site that was sacred to those people and then built it on themselves.
Could there have been environmental cues there that guided people to build something there in the first place? Could there have been water resources, food, things that carried through all those years? Yeah, sure, possibly. Could they have
That's where I was thinking.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. That's probably very, very likely. Or could they have picked up on very subtle changes back in the days before we had cell towers and electronics everywhere? Could they have picked up on very subtle differences in the Earth's magnetic field? Potentially. Could have been. I mean, if you look at the recent paper I talked about before, it seems like our brains are able to pick that up, but they don't know what to do with it. It's almost like it picks it up and you don't know what to make of it. So, I mean, those are two things that are possible, but I think to me it would be more of some environmental cue or some resource that was there that people just cued in on and said, hey, this is a good spot to be.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is completely random, and I'm sitting here listening to you guys talk, and I'm thinking like, all right, and I think Dave, you mentioned like about 4 points.
Mm-hmm.
Does there have to be 4 points? And if
That's what was in Watkins. That's the part
Okay.
I found in Watkins' book. I don't know if anybody follows that anymore, but that was the original thing. So I just wanted to address this real quick because it got to the what we were just talking about. And he has measured lines, cairns in places like Stonehenge and crop circles. Many do have anomalies. Yeah, and actually, one of the papers I read in Humanities, A Strange Cartography, Ley Lines, Landscape, and Deep Mapping in the Works of Alfred Watkins by James Thurgill. He went and tried to do this and follow a ley line, and he came across a stone monument. And he couldn't get his compass to settle on magnetic north. But he found out the reason he didn't do that is because the rock there had a lot of iron in it and it was fucking with the compass.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, as far as crop circles, yeah, I've had people or read reports where they claim that they have all kinds of magnetic anomalies in those. So, I mean, yeah, there's magnetic anomalies. And, like I said before, maybe people cued in on those things. They didn't know what it was, but they thought, ooh, this feels different. So let's build something here. So it's possible. I mean, I'm not saying it's not. It definitely is.
I call dibs on the crop circles topic.
Oh,
You, Tim.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna pump my brakes on jumping on so many until I actually read about them. This one was a good teaching moment for me.
But I mean, look at it. We're 45 minutes in, 46 minutes in, and we're still discussing the idea and concept.
Yeah,
so it wasn't so bad. We were scared that it was going to be like 10 minutes and we were done.
Nothing's ever 10 minutes when we get on camera and start talking.
No.
If you don't shut up.
No.
So, I mean, is there anything else to talk about with this?
I really had nothing else.
Yeah. I had nothing else. I have highlighted my closing thought, but we don't have to use it as a clothing thought. We're 13 minutes till the end, but my favorite was in right after the book in the late 60s, I think it was, about Atlantis and the ley lines being somehow associated with Atlantis. The Ley Hunter magazine was published. Someone started a Ley Hunter magazine. It had lasted until 1999. And the last editor, Danny Sullivan, stated at its closing that the idea of leys was dead. And so I'm going to say you have a 30-year magazine that's published about the idea of ley lines, that they stopped publishing it. Just self-reporting, it's over, it's gone, it's dead. There's nothing to it. Either that or the government got involved and made them do it.
It's a conspiracy.
Ooh, I should do conspiracy theories. Write that down.
Ley Hunter magazine. I want to see if I can get issue with that because I'm so curious.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're talking, you said 30 years?
Well, late 60s
to
1999.
Okay. So, yeah, it's shit. Over 30 years.
Yeah.
That's what we struggled with an hour show. Okay. How do you put out a magazine for 30 plus years on the topic? Holy fuck. God damn.
Yeah. Right. So, just my thought was when, I'm sure that magazine published, I'm sure that it provided jobs for people. It was income for the publisher. It was income for people. So at some point when the idea was so bad that they had to say, we have to move on from this. We're going to close this down. It's done. Maybe they had just repeated so many things. They got tired of it, or there was so much overwhelming lack of supporting information that it might have just been, if we keep continuing, our next publication won't be taken seriously. next to this one, so we want to get off this one. Maybe they started another one that maybe in the year 2000 they started the Orb Hunter magazine. Who knows?
Oh my! I wonder if they'll interview me. The Man in Black. That's right.
Of course they did.
Shut them down. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I'm looking. Ooh, Lay's the Secret Ley Hunter's Companion. I'm trying to look this stuff up on eBay. Let's see, the new Ley Hunter's Guide. $17. Wow. Ley Hunter. Oh, magazine. A Ley Hunter Journal, number 126 from 1997. $17. I might get that. I'm so curious to see what they write about.
And they say the government wastes money on research. Holy
I
shit.
know. Totally waste money.
Well, kudos to him, I guess, for shutting down. It's certainly not a novel thing today for ghost hunter shows to shut down because the idea is dead. At least for what they do.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got a question about that.
Oh yeah, here we go.
How long do you think ghost hunting will last?
It's a good question.
I mean, I think that the hobby is going to go on forever. That's just not going to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to get new people introduced to it. And then with the internet and the fascination with the unknown on TV shows and the access to inexpensive equipment, it's going to keep going, I think, for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually, you see a move away from potentially mainstream religion. People are looking for other new age things to get involved with to try to find meaning and what happens to life after death. So I think it's going to keep up for quite a while.
Yeah. It can be a comforting thought, to know that death is not the end. And I get it. I understand why that is such an attractive concept, and you're going to want to keep going. And it's something, and we've talked about this before. This is something anyone can do because you don't need anything. You don't need any training or education or even equipment. You can just go, and you can have an experience because it's a lot of subjective stuff that qualifies as experiences. And we know personal experiences are really, really important to us. So,
yeah, I mean, if you want to see where it's going and where it could go, I mean, read some of the stuff by, I think it's actually James Haran and Sharon Hill was part of this, the whole VAPIS model for paranormal tourism and sites, and then get into some of the work by a couple other authors on like Drinkwater and Masulo on understanding consumer enchantment via paranormal tourism. So there's some very long-lasting, appealing core themes there that are going to allow it to continue for a very long time.
Yeah.
Well, I think the idea of ghost hunting, or at least I think it's probably been around much longer than what we would understand, or at least the concept of ghosts or afterlife or even cryptoids. I think probably how it's handled evolves through different times and cultures. I know, like we've said this, we've talked about it. I doubt very seriously enough people would watch a TV show that we would like to see that would keep it running. But I would love to see an investigation into one location over a whole season, and actually have a mixture of people that were there that were believers and psychics, but also have people there that were very critical minded, very different scientists, very different setups. Like I would like to take the Skinwalker Ranch equipment and drop it into a castle and live in that castle with that equipment and see what happens. But I think such a critical examination of just one spot, and that there's not going to be a whole lot that's going to go on every episode because it's boring. Ghost hunting is boring. Most of it's sitting in the dark, wondering, if there's any place left open at 3 o'clock in the morning that you could go get something to eat. And if you throw science into it, you would really have to really figure out how to communicate what's going on in a very lay terminology without being insulting to the to the listeners, which that includes me. Tell me what you're doing, but let me understand what you're doing and how you're doing it. But I don't think that there's a television show yet for it. There might be in the future.
That was, I think, not the competing with science versus paranormal or ghost hunting, but there was a show back, I don't know when it was, maybe the 90s, 2000s, called American Paranormal.
Yeah,
and they had a group of scientists that went to was it East State Penn? I think it's East State Penn in Philly, and they kind of did the whole scientific thing based on what people reported experiencing there, and they put it in very layman terms when they explained what they found and what they thought was going on there, and it was pretty interesting. But yeah, I think a show like that would be real interesting, but boy, let's face it, you got to get ratings, and who knows how long that will last.
I'm torn here because I know we've discussed this before and I've given commentary on it, but when you think about it, like, we're talking about a potential show where, and I love how we went from Ley Lines to more of a solving mysteries kind of.
Wait. So how would we make a television show? That's my topic. I'm writing it down.
My dilemma here is that, like, we grew up on Scooby-Doo, which every half hour they solved this kind of mystery. Yes, it was a cartoon, but that was the concept. What we're talking about is exactly what the concept was for that show, and it was popular, and it's still running new shows today. Like, we're getting movies based on that concept. We have Unsolved Mysteries. We have other series like this is a way back. I don't know if everyone remembers this, but the Friday the 13th series, which had nothing to do with Jason Voorhees. There was the Librarian series, which was like more of a series of like mini movies, which was like this big, vast underground museum, secret museum with artifacts. It was basically the same thing. Artifacts that escaped into the world with magic, and people were sent out to recover them and bring them back. But they were solving these things at the end. So the concept is there. It is in pop culture, and it is accepted, at least for a time, like 3-4 seasons. I don't understand. I think there was a fear of being that skeptical viewpoint. And I'm using the term skeptical as in like, let's just loosely here, because it's more just investigating the claims rather than bullshit drama, you know, and sensationalizing something. It's actually focusing on the mystery at hand and solving it. So if you had a concept where you were allowed that time, you were given the proper resources and the proper people that had the background every week for a season. And again, we're talking like 14, maybe 24 shows. So you get 2 weeks to do to look into a mystery, and you solve it as best you can. Sometimes you're going to solve it. Sometimes you get the most likely conclusion based on the evidence, the data. And I think that would be a wonderful show. I think that would be an amazing series.
See, I want to stay a year and then break up the shows as you could. As you could, I would think a minimum of a year, so that you can get a whole cycle of each season, a whole cycle of just natural effects, into account, a whole year of it. And then if you had to edit it down and do what you had to do, then that would be good. But us three, that's what we would like. And there might be, I don't know how many more would watch, but I would love that. And that show, American Paranormal, I remember coming across that. Dude, I was so excited when I saw them. And they were in the prison. I can't remember the prison, but they had like sonar, and they were
East State. They were laser mapping.
They were mapping sound, so they could map the sound and see where the sound was reverberating.
Cool. Amazing.
American Paranormal.
Mhm.
It was
And
at
it lasted. It was dead. It was dead in the water.
I think I have a DVD. I was fortunate enough to, I think, record it when I saw it one time. So
I
it's
was
hard
so
to find right
excited.
now. Yeah.
I flipped my lid over that show. I
It
was
was great.
so I looked
That might be
forward.
a good private viewing
Yeah.
show, since I'll have to find a way to hook a DVD player up to my computer. That's going to be weird. I gotta
Well,
find one. I gotta find I gotta actually find a DVD.
I still have a full
Live.
tower under here, so that's why I
might
can
have
play.
to FedEx it to you to have you play it, stream
There
it.
you go. Well, bring it. You know what? We'll schedule that for the next one. We'll do, because I think we had an idea for a movie night.
The Bermuda Triangle was
Yes.
movie. Yeah, I have
So
that
we'll
one. Yep.
we'll do that for the next one. We just got to get together for a date, and then when we go to Gettysburg, just try to remember the DVD and bring it, and then we'll play it.
Okay, cool.
If you three get a show on the History Channel, can it be Kenny who gives us the new aliens meme?
What, like the guy with the crazy hair? Like, not aliens, but it's aliens.
See, I wanted to say, look, I'm not saying it's science, but it's science, bitches. So instead of the other way around.
There you go. I like that.
This is the one where that was the American Paranormal.
Yep.
Yeah, Red Man. Yeah, I really was very excited. And it just
love
dropped
that
off.
show.
I love that show.
Now I
I
gotta
still
look it up.
rewatch that episode once in a while. It's good stuff.
Oh, they did a Bigfoot episode. Nice.
It was like they were sending a message to anybody else that thought about injecting science into their cash-making cow.
Yeah, they said we're gonna kill this idea of science being on TV real quick.
Real quick.
It looks like they only did 4 episodes.
Yeah.
Oh,
It wasn't many.
It's really too bad.
Yeah, that sucks. All right.
Okay.
What do we got? We're at an hour. Look at this. He lasted an hour.
We made it an hour. That's an accomplishment.
So for my closing, I'll start with an apology to everybody, although it turned out to be a pretty fun conversation.
Yeah.
I really thought this was going to be a lot more in depth than what it was. It surely was shallow, and at least in terms of finding a very quick information about it. But I do like the concept of that came out of it. Thanks, Redman. That kind of sparked it. Was I would like to, maybe we should have an idea on what we would do for a TV show that would get all of 13 viewers, but it would be ours. Yeah, I at the beginning, we talked about it before the show started. I think we all agree. Like, I think the original concept of it was very good. I think it was a good question. I think it was a good observation that somebody just came along and was like, why are these places in a line? Maybe that has something to do with the geography, the lay of the land, the importance of
the lay.
Yeah. The importance of the location and the proximity and the distance. And I like the original idea. It really got hijacked and taken over and turned into something it really wasn't, I don't think, meant to be at the very beginning. So
yep.
All right. So Kenny, I'll pick on Kenny.
Oh, okay. I totally agree with you. Just gonna continue on and just say I actually wanted to address this topic, even though it was turning out to be like a real kind of, not clusterfuck, but just like not much there to go on.
Yeah.
And we were worried that there wasn't enough for an entire show. But I did mention before, I do get asked about this often, and I didn't have a good answer for it. It was basically, I could either say I don't know, which I preferred to do, or if somebody pressured me, it was like, well, look, do you really think there's lines and this and that? And it was kind of bullshit. And I'd have to say that, like, I don't really know. I'm just speculating here. So this was a chance to go back. And one of my favorite things to do is to go back to a primary source. Like I talked about, reading that chapter in the book was really enlightening, because it just doesn't mention anything, new age or supernatural or anything like that. It was basic observations, good observations too. I mean, the guy was connecting the dots, literally, but in a logical sense, not a let's make up some bullshit, and sell some book kind of way.
Right.
So I'm happy that we had a chance to get into this topic a little bit and discuss it more, not just get into the history of 10 minutes reading it and saying, oh yeah, cool. It took a little bit longer, and we got to discuss different points of it and bring up some good points here and there and expand upon it. So now I'm better prepared to field that question when it comes up in the future. So I'm glad we took it on, even though it's a sucky topic, Tim.
I win first place for worst topic.
You do. I'll make you a little trophy.
Okay.
It'll be a little Scooby-Doo going, you suck.
I'll take it. I'll put it back here with the rest of the.
So yeah, beyond that, I mean, there's nothing really left to say about it. There's nothing supernatural about this. It is a early concept. It's a historic kind of concept based on geography, not any kind of energy. So with that, I pass it to Dave.
All right, I'm going to read a couple sentences from that 2015 Humanities article by James Thurgill, and I agree with everything you guys said, but in a way, this kind of summarizes the historical part of it, what they were trying to do, but then the becoming involved in it, as well as the enchantment part. So here we go. In summary, walking a ley line allows for an intense sense of mobility, an act that encourages a moving in and between places. It's a pilgrimage of sorts, a way of revitalizing one's connection with the environment. Ley hunting creates a deep map of the world around us, a map with paths that revolve around embodiment, allowing us to explore the contours of narrative and place. It's a practice that offers us an opportunity to enrich not only our knowledge, historical and topographical, but also our awareness of place through the promoting of an acute connection with our surroundings. Ley hunting puts place and places at the center of our worldly encounters of spiritual engagements with our own surroundings, and gives us the opportunities to connect with and perform in the landscape. And then he finishes up second to last paragraph, whether or not ley lines exist or whether there is any scientifically justifiable evidence for believing in them is of little importance to a practice that can be viewed as being far more about land-based opportunities than anything else. Opportunities to replace the body in nature, to journey between sites of an historical importance, using an innovative guidance technique, and moreover, the opportunity to question the solidity of our own perception. So this is somebody who went out and actually walked ley lines and tried to find them and walk them like it was described in the Watkins paper. So immersing himself in the experience. Basically, if they're bullshit or not, he said he got something out of it because it allows you to get out, connect with the environment, connect with history, connect with the sense of awe, and experience some of this enchantment. So it's an interesting concept, and I think it combines all the different topics we kind of talked about tonight.
I want to expand on that and just say I totally agree. I love that, and the idea that presents when like I love to go hiking. I mean, it doesn't really show, but I do like to go hiking, especially into areas like when I go up to my father-in-law's place, like upstate Pennsylvania. Like there's open land everywhere, and you can go through trails. But I also love going through sections where you find an old foundation of a house, and it's like, wow, this was here like 100 years ago or 200 years ago, and you start thinking about what went on and who built this and where did it go? Like what happened to it? So I totally get that. And I enjoy that part. And I see that I'm going to use the concept of spiritually, not paranormal, but that spiritual experience where you're like, you can connect with that past and really enjoy it. And I totally agree with it. So,
yeah, I had my same thought. Was just the New River that's here in West Virginia. It's just right across from me. Going down to the river, either just going down to sit and have a campfire, some s'mores, or just to do like a little swimming or even rafting it. For me, at least, it's estimated over 10 million years old that river has cut. So, it's fascinating to think that while you're sitting at the river and you're looking at the two sides of the gorges, that was at one point that was flat-ish land. And so for millions of years, that river cut all the way down. And it's kind of just awe-inspiring and watching the river go by. Yep. And you're just watching, you're watching geography happen right in front of you. It's not happening fast in any means, but it's cutting as you're sitting there, and it's really fascinating. So I don't know if that's spiritual, but it's things like that get to me as well. Just watching it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. No phone, no computer, no car, no electronics, just sitting and enjoying
primitive as could be.
Yes,
like Robinson Crusoe.
Cool.
All right. Well, I thought it turned out pretty good.
Yeah.
I'll start with myself. I don't have anything coming up other than a show on Saturdays with two good friends of mine, and it's Three Tortured Souls. It's really nice. But other than that, I'm going to Gettysburg Battle Bash,
Gettysburg Battlefield Bash.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
In August, so I'm going to be able to. It's going to be really good to see you guys again, and I hope I get to meet so many people that come, and if they'll come to that, it'll be so good to see so many people. Had a great time last time meeting the people that were there that listen. It was really nice. So I really look forward to that. What do you think?
Ditto.
I know I'm gonna save Kenny for last because that's another.
Okay,
minutes. So Dave, what you got?
I'll say ditto, Tim.
Ditto. Mm-hmm.
And we were talking before this, and if we can manage to have a show every week before we get to Gettysburg will be our 100th show. So that's quite the accomplishment. We've been doing this for a while, and it's hard to believe it's been 100 shows by that point in time. And hopefully we'll make it the 100th show when we're out there. So we'll do it live. So we got something else to look forward to.
And the possibility of having so many people that show up and talk to us, being there with us for the 100th show, like that is
that could be epic.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
That would be just absolutely, and everybody just coming on and talking and sharing experiences on the show. That would be fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So my turn, because I always have a lot. And
open another beer. Hold on.
Yep. Open another beer. Make it.
I'm going to go to the bathroom. Go ahead.
Let's see. So, July is my busy month. The July 8th, which is Friday night, I'll be at Fort Mifflin with John without an H, who I didn't see in here today. His group. He's part of a paranormal group that is definitely more on the skeptical side, and in a good way. They do a lot of fun stuff. Dr. Jim will also be there, so I'm going to get to hang out with him Friday night, and then hopefully Saturday sometime they might be here hanging out. Maybe in the afternoon they're going to be hanging out a little bit because they want to come over and see like all the museum stuff that I have and play with it and maybe unleash all hell. So what's else? July 16th is Skeptical. That is the California Skeptics. They have a conference. It's an online conference, and I'll be speaking for about a half hour talking about my journey from ghost hunter to more skeptical investigator. July 23rd is the Paraunity Expo in New Jersey. It's Woodbridge, New Jersey. I'll be set up with my skeptical help booth, and I'll be harassing a whole bunch of people in a friendly way. Then the following week, I have something secret that I can't talk about, but I'll talk about it after I'm done, and I'll let you guys know. August 20th, or actually 19th to 21st, is the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash, where all three of us will be there. We'll be hanging out and doing live show, or maybe live shows. I don't know. There's lots to do there. So if you can make it out, I honestly encourage you to come out, not only to see these two paracelebs, but that's right, bitches. There's a lot more to see out there. I mean, they have bands and singers, and like there's a whole biker chapter. I don't know exactly what to call them, but last time there was about 50 custom bikes that came out, like Harleys. And
nice.
Yeah, it was really nice. There's a charity that comes out with a guy dresses up in a like a cool Batman suit, and he has the Batmobile, one of the Batmobiles, and it's really cool. You can get pictures with it and stuff. There's so much to do. So come on out. There's parties every night. It's such a good time, and it's just really, really nice. Plus, there's people there that we've talked about, and that should be interesting to see in itself.
I was just thinking about there's potential fights that happen. Maybe.
No, not at this one.
Not at this one.
No, that's the other one.
That is
and then the last thing I have is October 20th to 23rd is the SciCon out in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'll be speaking out there, talking about believers and skeptics working together for common goals and stuff like that. So that should be interesting. And I'll be out there for the whole conference. It's definitely a more expensive conference, but if you can make it, it is educational. It's very educational. There's a lot of topics covered. It's not just paranormal stuff, not at all. I mean, I'm just a small, teeny tiny part of it. Neil deGrasse Tyson will be out there. There's Penn and Teller are coming out, and they never do conferences, so it's kind of a big deal that they're coming out, and they are just phenomenal to talk to. Them two guys, especially Teller. Holy shit, when he speaks, it's weird. It's just so weird because he doesn't talk, but he's so articulate.
Yeah,
like I almost want to stand straight up when he starts speaking because it's that formal. So definitely come on out. But that's all I have for now that I can talk about. So there you go.
Okay. Well, we are on a mission not to miss a show, regardless of what happens in the future, so that we can share our 100th with everybody for sure. And well, thanks for listening tonight. And who's up next?
Kenny.
Yeah, me.
Well, I hope I fall on the 100th show because it's already picked. We'll just interview people. We'll have a good time. I'm
looking for the easy out.
Damn. I'm limping in after this topic. I'm limping in.
There's going to be high expectations to reclaim your status on the show.
Ooh, okay. Well, good night, everybody. Thanks for listening. We appreciate you very much, and hope to see as many people as we can.
It's Dave. Dave. It'll be Dave's turn.
Okay.
Tomorrow, next one,
it'll
or
be a shit
100?
show.
Oh, shit. All right. See you guys.
See ya.
Don't for chance, don't for chance, game with the real, just what the name, game with the real, game for the thrill, don't question me, Dave is about, Dave is out, Dave is about, those everyone, I'm on TV, don't for chance, don't for chance, don't for chance, don't for chance.